This is NTV.
Greetings to you this Tuesday morning. You are just in time for another look at your world. Now, today we focus on something society would rather speak of in hushed tones: suicide. Now, truth is, death by suicide is a reality, and one that we have seen exacerbated by the pandemic due to various reasons. Actually, the WHO, that is the World Health Organization, says suicides account for more than deaths than caused by malaria, breast cancer, war, homicide globally. Now, here's the thing: suicide is also preventable, and that is why ahead of the World Suicide Prevention Day this morning, we speak on how and what each of us can do to help, with special focus on the role of religious institutions. My name is Gladys, Gachanja, and this is what else you can expect. Kenya receives another 880,460 doses of Moderna vaccine. Performers dressed in material salvaged from rubbish bins parade through the streets of Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
I think beggars ni kuliko kuadhibiwa na serikali.
As I mentioned, with the rates of suicide on the rise, what role can religious institutions play in deterring this trajectory? We talk more about that in a moment. Student takes her own life after a disagreement with her parents. More details on that in a moment. At the Suicide Prevention Day, Awareness Day. And that's why the question of the day to you this morning is, should attempted suicide be considered a crime? Yes, it is actually a crime in this country, but should it really be considered a crime considering all the factors therein? Well, we'll talk more about that in a moment, but also very curious to understand where you stand on this. That hashtag is new normal. And as always, remember, you can reach us using those numbers at the bottom of the screen, even as we continue with this broadcast. Well, at this point, let's take a look at the impact of COVID-19 around the world. And this morning, the numbers stand at 221,978,794 confirmed cases. Out of that number, 198,583,498 are reported to have recovered. And unfortunately, 4,588,888 have succumbed to COVID-19 globally. In the country, the number stands at 240,430 confirmed cases, 229,006 have recovered, and unfortunately 4,795 people have succumbed to COVID-19 within the confines of Kenya. And staying with COVID-19, Kenya has so far received a total of 5,146,780 multiple doses of COVID-19 vaccines, an important shot in the arm in intentions to vaccinate at least 10 million Kenyans by December. A second batch of 880,460 doses of the Moderna vaccines from the U.S. government arrived yesterday. NTV's Helen Aura reports that the Ministry of Health maintains Kenya will not mix and match vaccines.
The availability of multiple COVID-19 vaccines eased the constraints Kenya has been facing in efforts to get the job done. So far, the country has received a total of 5,146,000 doses of the Moderna, AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson vaccines. The Ministry of Health says vaccine uptake is now on an upward trajectory, but asks Kenyans not to pick and choose.
There's a lot of hype and people are excited, but as we have said, all these vaccines are the same. But we have also said Johnson can be of good utility in the primary healthcare setting because of its easy storage capabilities.
At least 100,000 Kenyans who received the first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine are yet to go for the second jab. While the preference to mix and match may be one reason why some have defaulted on the second dose, others are still reluctant to get the jab. The ministry says 1,000 people have so far developed side effects since the vaccination drive began. 6 are being closely monitored.
So the vaccines are there. That is what the government is doing. Once the government has played its role, the individual must play their role. They must come and get the second dose. As the CIS has said, when you have partial protection, you are not fully, your body is not fully challenged to be able to fight the virus when it comes.
The ministry had indicated it could make the single-dose Johnson & Johnson the country's primary vaccine due to the ease of administration.
It's all of our responsibility to protect ourselves, protect our families and our communities from this deadly disease. The COVAX-delivered vaccines are safe, effective and becoming more available across the country. Please do not let rumors or misinformation dissuade you from getting vaccinated.
Kenya is also set to receive the Pfizer biotech vaccine, another shot in the arm of the country's vaccination efforts.
The uptake of vaccines in the country is very encouraging, as the majority of Kenyans have responded well to our call to come out and get vaccinated. At the rate at which we are moving, and pending no supply problems or constraints, we expect to attain the 10 million target set by His Excellency the President that we must achieve by December of this year.
As Kenya continues to receive more doses of COVID vaccines across, the ministry is calling on at least 100,000 Kenyans who received their first dose of COVID-19 vaccine but are yet to receive their second dose in a bid to attain full vaccination, disregarding the issue of mixing and matching of vaccines. Helen Aura, NTV.
Away from that, performers dressed in cans, tubes, mirrors and other materials salvaged from rubbish bins parade through the streets of Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo for the 5th edition of the Kinachi Festival, which aims to raise awareness of the environment as well as art. Shakamfumo Kabaka, one of the performers, says the CDs that you see and the records are things that are salvaged from the garbage to be used for creation. So I've transformed this into a robot suit that you see, then that passes a message of hope from the music. In fact, I think it also allows people to ask themselves questions about materials and how, in fact, from an object that is a kind of waste, we can create something quite fantastic, quite incredible, protean characters with different shapes. So it's actually reusing a material that is normally discarded and completely neglected to magnify it. Well, Saadi Gaddafi, a son of Libya's late dictator Muammar Gaddafi, who was overthrown and killed in a 2011 uprising, has been freed from jail. Elsewhere, Haitian schools are set to go back September 7th, but for a country still reeling from the assassination of its president on July 7th and a deadly earthquake on August 14th, it is a daunting task, particularly for students living close to the epicenter. Maxime Eugene, a teacher at Mazenod School, says the school is a resource for this area. Everything depends on it. Without this school, the Mazenod community is completely destroyed. The school has got to function. The main thing is to be able to pay the teachers and employees, and everything will be fine. Pierre Luther, a caretaker at another school, says we have simply got to clear up this part of the school if we want school to go ahead. No one, not even parents or the teachers, is going to risk working in the school. No one will feel safe looking at the cracks in the building walls. Well, back home and to a focus of our conversation today, a Form 2 student in Bungoma County allegedly took her own life following a domestic disagreement. The Naburere secondary school student is said to have died by suicide at her boyfriend's house after her parents reprimanded her for failing to report back to school. Ouko Kusa with more.
The deceased's mother, Praxidis Wekesa, caught wind that her daughter had been spotted at a man's house in Kabula Market.
Wakati yenye nimekuja hapa asubuhi, mtoto amekuwa mzima, akafungua pacha akaniangalia, akasema, nikajaribu kuongea na mtoto aongei, kamwambia mama, fungua mlango kuja nyumbani, watu ndio nakosanga.
But Praxidis' pleas fell on deaf ear, forcing her to go back home and fetch her husband. But they were too late.
Sasa mimi nikadhani ni mchezo, hawezi akachinyonga. Sasa vile nimekuja huku nikapata kweli mtoto ako kwa kamba, nikadhani mtoto angali mzima. Sasa vile wamekata mlango, nikadhani mtoto bado anapumua.
Kuna jamaa anaishi kwa hii bloti, yeye ndiye walianza naye uhusiano, miezi 2 imepita. Nadhani yeye ndiye alifanya huyu mtoto akadrop kwenda shuleni, lakini sasa huyo jamaa saa yuko.
Na kama uko na shida, kaa na mzazi wako, muelezee baba ama mama, mimi niko na shida hii na hii, alafu tukae chini tuongee kama tunaongea na watoto wetu, kuliko kuchitoa uhai. Kuchitoa uhai sio mwisho wa maisha.
Huyo mtoto kukuja hapa nasikia si mara ya kwanza, na anakujanga na nyinyi wazazi mnaletewa mlango wa nyuma sukari mnachukua, wakati mambo imekataa hivi mnafika mbele ya watu mnasema hamujui vitu kama hii.
The body of the deceased was later taken to Bungoma County Hospital mortuary. Ouko Kusa, NTV.
Unfortunately, the reality that underscores that death by suicide is a reality in this society, and we cannot go on sort of, burying our heads in the sand, hoping that we will not talk about this and it will go away. It is with us. And to help us understand how each of us can actually pull their weight to ensure we prevent suicide in this country and beyond, on my panel this morning, we have Sheikh Ibrahim Lithome, who is a Muslim scholar at the Jamia Mosque and also a lawyer by profession. We are also joined by Chetna Mukesh Desai, who is a vice chairperson at the Hindu Council of Kenya. Also joining us from his office is Reverend John Calvin Kamau, who is the parish minister at the PCEA Kahawa Sukari. And of course, joining us virtually is Hiram Chomba, who is a suicide prevention expert at the Center for Suicide Research and Interventions, abbreviated as CSRI. Thank you all for being part of this conversation. Now, Hiram, I'll start off with you. Just coming off that report about the young girl that actually took her own life. Why is this day, September 10th, so important?
Well, it is important because suicide is happening within our societies. It is happening where we are. And when mass suicide happens, it affects a couple of people in the community. You've had, a lot of, the young woman they are speaking, and then you can read from the emotions in our work. You can tell from the society the shock that is there. So as we commemorate this year's World Suicide Prevention Day, it is important to have in mind that suicide is happening. It's actually one of the highest killers among teenagers and young people. The young girl is actually teenage IB group, and so she's actually the second leading cause of death among teenagers, globally. So this is a very important conversation that you started on such a note.
Okay, it is unfortunate, but the reality is, as we have seen it, Sheikh Lithome, just listening to that report, what comes to mind?
Well, one thing that we have to appreciate, Gladys, is that this is a reality that we have to live with. And unfortunately, many of us in society tend to push it under the carpet. It's like it's not there with us, but this is a reality and we have to address it. And from a religious perspective, I think we have failed the society by not addressing it. Because even when I was invited for this show, I was trying to remember, when did I last hear a sermon anywhere in the mosque? I won't talk about the other religious institutions, but our mosque. When did I last hear anybody talking about suicide? Yet it is there in society. And for me, religion is not just about preparing people to go to heaven, the other life, but it is about preparing people how to live well in this world before that other world. Meaning, we have to address everything that is affecting society. So it's very unfortunate, but I'm glad now we have this forum to talk about it. But this is the reality that we have to live with. It is real, and we have to address it.
Very well said. Chetna, just listening to this, I mean, the WHO says it is a problem worldwide within the Hindu community. Is this something that you're grappling with?
What I would mark here, that as per the Hindu religion, the people who are following Hinduism, as per 2018, it says only 21 people out of 100,000 try to attempt suicide, or they already got into the suicide. But as per the Hinduism, what we practice is more, the religion can really help people not to go up to that extent, because there are few things which can be changed, like your prayers, your chanting, talking to the priest, and getting that counseling can prevent this suicide things. And it is dangerous, it is really scary, especially with the young children, young kids. So much of peer pressure, so much of expectations. The world is growing so fast. Today I have iPhone 3, the person has got iPhone 4, the other one has the latest one. So you know that pressure also drives the children towards this.
And we'll definitely talk about other risk factors that drive people to death by suicide in a moment. But let me hear from Reverend Kamau. I mean, I'm sure just listening to that report and having your own experiences within your congregation, this hit home, right?
Yes, Gladys, indeed this is home in the Christian religion, that we have many people who do commit suicide. Every other time I'm called upon to pray for people who feel like they have come to their very end, and they'll keep calling you and telling you, Pastor, remember me. And those are the few people. Others will just give up. So there is a lot of hopelessness in our society. So therefore, when we hear such a story of a young person, it shows pressure that comes, that this person cannot be able to hold, and therefore decides to take their life. Thank you, Gladys.
And have you seen this escalate perhaps within this pandemic?
Yes, it has. More so this time, especially because of the pressures of COVID. We already have seen more people suffer, struggle, and I can actually attest to the fact that we have more hopelessness today than it was before 2020. before this COVID pandemic came to be with us.
Now, Hiram, I think this is the point where it's important we clarify some of these things that we are talking about, starting with the fact that we will hear a lot of these words used in this conversation. What is suicide ideations? What is suicide attempt? And what is suicide?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gladys. Suicide is a conscious or deliberate effort to end one's life. There is no really, mainstream definition of suicide, because suicide is viewed differently from every culture. There is no standard, suicidal behavior, if I want to say that. In Kenya, there's a way people view suicide. Even if you go to Western province, if you go to Central province, counties, you will realize that you have different lenses that you view suicide. So we can't really say that there's a specific definition of suicide, but we go by the definition that it's the act of ending one's life that is deliberate. Suicidal ideation are thoughts and ideations about ending one's life. Usually they come after a period of isolation, for instance. A person experiences something, begins to ruminate and have, over time, slowly isolate themselves, and that is when they begin to have ideations. Not all suicidal ideation results to suicidal attempts, and not all suicidal attempts, of course, might have prolonged periods of suicidal ideation. Asked about suicidal definition of suicide, the definition of suicidal ideation, and suicidal
attempt? Yes.
Yes, attempts. So when an attempt is the first, the first act of making that attempt on one's life, of ending one's life, usually a series of ideations, or it could be the first ideation. For some people, the first attempt is after the first ideation. You heard about the girl, in that case in Western, she said that she would actually take her life, and someone mentioned it was not the first time that she had said that. If you picked something from the mother, she thought that it was a joke. And these are some of the misconceptions and myths about suicide, that when people say they want to take their lives, people think it's a joke. And of course, is this common saying that, go ahead and take your life. Or someone will say, can I assist you with methods of taking your life? So I think I picked a couple of misconceptions and myths about suicide from that feature.
Okay, and we talked about the fact that this is rising today and more exacerbated by the pandemic. Perhaps, Sheikh, from where you sit, what have you seen as the risk factors that are leading many to suicide?
Yeah, thank you, Gladys, for that question. For me, as we began by saying that this is a reality, some of the factors or the underlying root causes are hopelessness, because all of us want to live. Even a person of my age or even older than me still wants to live. You still feel there is value in life, there is potential. So what is it that gets into somebody's mind and they feel, I don't want to live anymore? So it's frustration, hopelessness, and thinking that the only solution is to get out of this world, So we need to look at the underlying root causes of suicide, and more so now with COVID-19 and the frustrations that have come with COVID-19. Like, many people have lost their livelihoods, so meaning that people have lost hope in life. There are people who are not used to staying with their spouses for long hours. During the lockdown, there was a joke that was told that even some children were asking their mother, has Daddy moved in to stay with us? Because they were not used to seeing Daddy 24 hours every day, 7 days a week. So with all these, and then the hopelessness, then this can lead to people thinking that the only solution for me is to take away my life. And for me, I think, even as we talk about this reality, we need to focus more on the underlying root causes. Why is it that it is rising? And more so now with this COVID-19 and the challenges that come with COVID-19, why is it rising? And then look at how we can address the underlying root causes of suicide. Because talking about it, maybe even condemning those who attempt, because unfortunately, for those who succeed in committing suicide, you cannot do anything about it because they are gone. But those who attempt, and because even the law deals with the people who have attempted and have not succeeded, instead of focusing a lot on that, maybe as society we need also, and more so as religious leaders, we need also to look at the underlying root causes and how we can address them. Because you cannot hope to deal with a disease or any situation effectively without identifying the underlying root causes and then effectively dealing with them. And I think this is what we need to do.
Very well said. And actually, as Sheikh is saying, according to this country, in Section 236 of the Penal Code, an attempt to suicide is a misdemeanor which can lead to imprisonment of up to 1 year. So a person who tries to take his or her own life is likely to be fined and imprisoned. So we asked you on that question of the day, should attempting suicide be criminalized? Talk to us. That hashtag is a new normal, and we went out to the streets in the different parts of this country to understand what you think about the same. This is what you had to say.
In my view, I think we should not criminalize suicidal behavior, because we need to educate the masses on how to identify suicidal behavior so that such people can be assisted to overcome these issues.
It is a crime kwa sababu wale ambao wanajinyonga wanajiachisha maisha na wanawacha wale ambao wanabaki katika maisha katika hali mbaya. Mimi tu ningeomba serikali na families waweze kuangalia wapendwa wao ambao wako na stress ama wako na shida, ambao ukiona mtu ambaye ako na stress na anaweza kufanya jambo chochote lolote, uweze kuwaongelesha ili wasifanye vitu kama hizo. Kujinyonga is a crime, na hata dini zote zinazungumzia ni makosa. Hawajaitwa na Mungu kwa ajili ya mtu amekufa kawaida.
Haitakuwa mzuri binadamu atoi wayaka mwenyewe. Ni Mungu peke yake alikupea, na yeye hako na hiyo haki ya kuchukua. So mimi, kulingana na mimi, kutoa uhai ni is a very criminal thing. Hata kama maisha imekuwa namna gani, lazima tuvumilie, sababu kesho ni mzuri. Lazima tukue na hopes kila wakati.
Kila mwananchi ni mali ya serikali. So hakuna mtu mwenye akona uwezo ama akona uwezo wa kujitoa maisha. Kwa hivyo kujitoa maisha ni hatia. Ukipelekwa kotini unastahili uchukuliwe hatua juu umeattempt kunyonga. Kitu kingine ya pili, kuna hitajika ushauri mwafaka kwa watu wakati amejaribu kunyonga, ndio tujue sababu ilikuwa nini.
Trying to kill yourself, you commit murder. It's like committing murder and you are supposed to be charged. Yes, it needs something that can be done, a school like to be put up across the country so that people can be enlightened on how they manage stress and depression.
Kisheria, kuadhibiwa kisheria, hiyo nayo sioni ikiwa na maana kubwa. Ile kitu inafaa ni huyu mtu akae chini, aongeleshewe na watu, aseme ile kitu inafanya, ajaribu kujitoa uhai, apatiwe guidance. I think guidance ni muhimu kuliko kuadhibiwa na serikali. Yaelezee ni kiini hasa cha kujaribu kujitoa uhai. Juu saizi stress ziko juu sana.
Ichukue hatua. Kama mtu anasikia mtu akisema atajinyoga, alipoti. Na akiripoti, askari wasikawie, waje wachukue hatua, waanze kumonta that person.
Kosa kubwa kwa sababu mtu akijitoa uhai ataacha familia yake na majukumu mengi sana. Na hii majukumu wazazi wake watakuwa wanataabika juu mtu kuna pata alikuwa anacheza katika familia.
It is interesting what Kenyans think about it. If suicide should actually attempting suicide should be criminalized. A lot actually have said that they would prefer if it actually stays the same. And I'm wondering, Chetna, even as we're talking about dealing with the root causes of what pushes people to attempt suicide or even take their own lives, where do you stand on this?
As per Hinduism, there are different scriptures like Upanishad, Veda, Mahabharata, Ramayana. All are those like a Quran and Bible in Muslims and in Christianity. So these are all the scriptures which we have in Hinduism. As per the Upanishad, it says one of the scripture is a holy book, is the highest level of maturity. If you reach up to there, that's the highest level of maturity, then you can commit yourself death until fasting till death. So people don't eat until their death, but that happens at the highest level of maturity, which when we think about the youngsters and we think about the young lives which goes away like this is not acceptable. It's not good. And other thing, I think we have to make the children understand from their childhood that this time will go. Whatever time it is, it will go. We get frustrated. Yeah, why? What, how, but there is a solution for it. Look for the solutions, look for the root cause of it. Yes, the pandemic is global, it is affected the entire world. Imagine everyone goes to suicide? No, it's not possible. Why few people think about this? Why few people are attempting? Because I think there's a family support we need, there's a religious support we need, there's a counseling we need, there's a community support we need. If we get together and if we try to make the children understand, yes, this is a wrong situation, this is a bad situation, this is unfortunate for everyone, but we have to be focused, we have to be positive, and we have to think about the day after the night. It's going to come.
We said, or at least Sheikh and of course Chomba had mentioned that a lot of attempted suicides are actually pegged on hopelessness. So if this person is being pushed to that by hopelessness, should we criminalize their act?
No, I don't think so. Because by taking them in the prison or by giving them fine or anything, is it going to change? No, it's not going to change.
Okay. Reverend Kamau, your thoughts?
The word of God, the Bible talks about how precious life is. Now, the same text Bible talks about the plans God has for us. So therefore we have a responsibility as a church to help our people to have hope. Bible says that love your neighbor as you love yourself. So there's no one who can commit suicide when they are in their normal sense. My conviction is that it's a matter of mental health. So we can deal with it and heal people's lives so that they are able to have that hope to live.
Okay.
And the Bible offers that.
All right. Now, currently, there is actually been a case in court where human rights activists are pushing for this law to be abolished. Do you back the same?
Well, of course, we are within the laws that govern us. And there are people who are deterred from doing things because of law. However, there should be a mixture of the two, where the religious organizations help people to survive rather than just taking them to jail. Because if someone goes to jail because they attempted suicide, once they are released, they will still do it. So it's more of healing rather than just condemnation.
Okay, now Hiram, when it comes to the abolishment of this penal code, all this came from the task force that was put together when President Uhuru Kenyatta said it was time that the country actually looked at the mental status of its people. Criminalizing suicide, is this something that should be abolished the world over?
I think criminalizing suicide is one of the most absurd things I think I've experienced in my line of work, because we have to understand that people actually in this country are incarcerated because of attempted suicide. Britain, which our current constitution has borrowed from, decriminalized suicide in the 80s, but still we do have in our country in the 21st century suicide being people being incarcerated for having hopelessness. It's crazy when you think about it, because what is the intent then of think about it? If indeed the law criminalizing suicide was intended to reduce the number of suicides, then it would be working by. But as we have seen during the COVID times, the numbers of suicide have increased. So if the law was supposed to curtail the numbers, obviously it's not doing that. So I believe that we a country can do so well, because personally I have been witnessed so many people in correctional centers actually because they have been charged with the offense of attempting on their lives. So when you think about it, this is a person who is poor, is struggling economically, is depressed, has mental health conditions. So when you take that to a confinement where there are actually people are actually convicted there, you're actually predisposing this person more. So it doesn't make sense, even from a logical point of view, that the law curtails suicide.
Okay, so we had this police report that was released the other day that was actually capturing data from April to June, where the attempts of suicide had really gone up, and actually deaths by suicide were really high in such a short span, just underscoring perhaps the impact of COVID-19 on our people. Sheikh, when you think about that, and now that we're thinking about the solutions going forward, reasons, economic hardships, failed relationships or marriages, missed opportunities, how can we now address it from where you sit?
Yeah, thank you very much, Gladys, because where I sit is, first of all, a religious podium. Let me begin from there. The religion is very clear about it. I heard my sister and even the Reverend talk about what the scriptures say about it. Let me take this opportunity also to share what the teachings of Islam say about committing suicide. It is haram. There are no two ways about it. It is prohibited. There are many religious texts that talk about it. For example, in chapter 4, verse 29, the Quran says very clearly, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Do not kill yourselves. Then in another verse, you are told, وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى تَهْلُكَ. And do not with your own hands cause yourselves distractions. And then the teachings of the Prophet, may peace be upon him, is that whoever kills themselves, takes away their lives, then they will be punished by God. So there are no two ways about it. The higher objectives of the Islamic teachings is that religion came to preserve life. Now, when we come now to the laws of the country, we know that is section 226 of the Penal Code that criminalizes attempt here. One thing that we need to ask ourselves is this. Was there a reason why that section was inserted in the Penal Code? The answer is yes. The mischief that is supposed to be addressed by that section is people should be deterred from committing suicide. And because we cannot punish a person who succeeds in committing suicide, now we are left with the person who has attempted. And maybe sometimes when we talk about incarceration, we should know incarceration serves two purposes. Sometimes it is to protect the person from himself, okay, and even from others, from committing crime against themselves and against others. Now, is that a solution? For me, the answer is no. Just using the law to force people not to commit suicide, for me, it's not a solution. The solution lies more in trying to address the underlying root causes. When you talk about hopelessness, one thing about religion is that it gives you hope. You must always have hope. You must always have something that we call contentedness. Kwa Kiswahili tunasema kuridhika. You must be content with what you have. And again, greed is another thing that causes hopelessness, because I want to be like Gladys. I will never be like Gladys. We are different. I want to compete with others. I should be satisfied with what I have. So we need more to focus on what is it that will give people hope. But not only empty words, but also address real issues that cause hopelessness. And if you ask me, Gladys, we are all Kenyans here. Corruption is one of the things that is causing hopelessness in this country. When you see people becoming billionaires out of COVID-19, it frustrates me because people are suffering here. And I can see on the media some people who have become billionaires because of corruption. Bad leadership is also causing a frustration among the people. People are not getting the services that they are supposed to get because somebody somewhere is not doing what they are supposed to do. These are some of the things that we should not ignore. All the things that cause frustration. And then let religion come and give people hope. But people will not just live on hope alone. Hope plus addressing practical issues affecting the people. So come up with practical solution to those problems.
And again, we keep asking that question. Do you think that attempting suicide should be criminalized? That hashtag is a new normal. If we can have some of your feedback on screen this morning. And we shall start off with Gabby, who says counseling would really be helpful to those fellows. It should not be termed as a crime. Thank you, Gabby. Another here from Gachanja who says, no, it shouldn't. These people need help, not prison. Kazim Gendi says, it is a mental health crisis and someone needs to offer help where needed and not criminalize issues related to mental health. Asante. Another from Cristiano who says, yes, a big one, but its sentence should just be a good mental guidance. Interesting perspective. Mercy who says, no, we need to address mental health awareness more intentionally. Asante Mercy. Another here from Abraham Kisa who says, instead they should increase institutions and professionals that offer psychiatric help to such people. They still can find ways to die by suicide in prison. Ambani says no, instead convince someone that things can work out. If it's made a crime, then someone will see it is punishable and will make sure that he actually dies. A lot of stigma comes with attempting suicide or even dying by suicide. And a lot of people say the shame, fear and the punishment, now that there is a law against it, are some of the things that push those who actually think of taking their own lives to that point. And I'm wondering now, in this case, how would you help somebody like that? Because it is a reality. There are people who are struggling amongst us, away from the ideal situation. How do you reach out to those amongst your community, Chetna?
Gladys, thank you for that question. You know, it is again one thing I would like to tell you, that as per the Hinduism, this body is a temple and the soul which is living in is a god. And Hinduism also believe in reincarnation. So if the person dies with suicide, and then the next 7 births will be very painful, it will not be peaceful, because you don't have any right to take out the soul from your body by your own. It should be a natural death, maybe with some disease or some unfortunate sickness or anything. But you cannot commit suicide, you cannot die on your own, it's not allowed. And again, going back to the root cause, how you can stop it, how you can prevent it. If you have a strong background of your family, strong family support, strong community support, and that positiveness is there, the hope is there, then there will be no question of committing suicide or attempting suicide. And at the same time, it should not taken as a crime. It's not a crime.
Okay, Chetna, help me understand. You started off by giving us statistics that you have very few people who die by suicide within the Hindu community. So what is this about this community that you have found that has helped along those that find themselves in spaces of hopelessness?
I will still take it as a family support, because you know, most of the even I'm sure Muslim communities or Christian communities or any XYZ communities, they believe in family support, family. We have a joint family. Even if we are living in a separate house, but we still have those family attachment. any problem, any XYZ is having, will go to the family first. And family are the one who are looking around you. Okay, this child looks a bit depressed or bit in problem. Let's try to help that child. What's the problem? Why he is or she is behaving like this? So those also helps. And again, going out of the family, there's a community support. Like Hindu Council of Kenya, we have a very, very big platform for the counseling. Not only for the suicide, but the reasons behind attempting suicide. There is unemployment, there's a family issues, there's a relationship, there's a financial issues. So all those being looked after. So I think that really helps. And the religious belief that yes, by going to the temple, by chanting, by performing religious rituals, it will calm you down. It will try to change your mind.
Okay, Reverend Kamau, as we started off the program, I mentioned that you have lived experience by, somebody who actually, one or two people within your congregation that actually attempted and some even died by suicide. When you think about those circumstances, should this be something that should be stigmatized? And how should the church actually help along those that find themselves at these crossroads?
Thank you, Gladys. I think the first thing is to be able to give support to a family that has a person who either attempted suicide or someone who died by suicide. Why am I saying this? Because the support system is everything. One of the things we do in the Christian faith is what we call premarital counseling. That each and every person who gets married goes through a preparation, because when people get married, they have what we call unrealistic expectations. And if they get into marriage with those unrealistic expectations and then they can't be met, they get frustrated, they get hopeless. So not only that, then issues of trauma. My church, the Presbyterian Church of East Africa, has a liturgy, for example, for burying someone who has died through suicide. But it's like we talk about the mercies of God instead of being assured that that person is going to heaven. You see, that in itself is a deterrent. Two, the support of the family after they have lost a loved one gives all the assurance that since there is some genetic, sometimes affiliation to mental health, that there is a support of the church and we can walk with you. We don't criminalize it.
Okay, and that makes a lot of sense, and that's why, Hiram, I'd like you to speak on the impact of stigma in suicide.
Yes, well, stigma really is informed by what is around us. From the church to the community, church is, religion really generally can be a support system, very important support system, or people interpret difficulty. When you think about someone who, is posing the philosophical question of whether I should continue living or whether I should die, you have to consider, before a person gets there, no one really prepares us for living. Because when a person says, I want to take my life, they're thinking about ending, their life, And what forms their approach or they resolve that challenge is largely informed by what is around them. So we have experienced a lot of stigma, and we even witnessed a lot of stigma among families, who have a member who has died by suicide. That is the first place stigma happens, in the community. So if you have a person who, for one reason or the other, attempts, when they attempt, the issues around what people say, the immediate neighbor, their religious leader significantly impacts whether tomorrow they will heal or they will, continue in that journey of wanting to end their lives. And research has shown that as one attempt, can influence another attempt. Before a person takes their lives, an average of about 2 attempts. So stigma really impacts the individual and even the society and even the families that are left behind. If you have if I say I've lost my brother to suicide, there's a chance that even myself might consider suicide if the society around me is not supportive and there is stigma. People say, going to God, no? Or we are bewitched, or there's words or statements that personalize the problem to our family. Then I would feel even more helpless, because on one hand, I look up to my religious leader to support me. They may not do that. A lot of religious leaders these days are offering a lot of support. But if I look to immediate family and they do not support me, then every single day, every single moment, chances of ending one's life goes higher. So about the sensitivity is very important, even to have these conversations, so that because they reduce stigma and allow people to actually talk about these things and begin to have conversations, even in families that some of them have died best.
Thank you, and definitely that is what we are intentionally doing here on Your World, making sure we shed light on these conversations so that they can also trigger similar conversations within your various spaces. And at this point, remember, we had asked you earlier on, should attempted suicide be considered a crime in this country? Well, it's already in the penal code, but should this really be the case? Well, we have feedback from residents of Kericho and Embu.
Sio makosa, lakini sasa inafaa yule mtu mwenye anajinyonga apewe advice. Badala ya kujitoa uhai, atafute hata wazee ama wale watu wenye wanahusika na mambo ya familia wampatie advice. Hakuna haja ya kujitoa uhai hivyo. Hata kama uko na shida gani, kila mtu ako na shida hii dunia. So inafaa unapata hiyo mawaidha ya watu.
For somebody to commit suicide is a personal decision. It has taken a lot for somebody to make such a decision. I don't think it is wise for somebody to be criminalized because they choose to do that. It is someone's wish. Unless somebody has forced you to do that, then we will count it as a bad thing. But a personal choice, I don't think it's that.
I can say it's a crime. Well, the reason being is that, in the Bible it is written that any sin or committing a sin is a crime. You are supposed to maybe seek for the consultancy from any other person to assist you in maybe in terms of guiding and counseling instead of taking away your life.
I see it as a crime. It's not because you have committed yourself a murder case. So it's not good. Because there are people depending on you. Maybe you have a family to take care of, and in case you have committed a murder, that family of yours, you have left it, umeiacha kama inahangaika.
Attempted suicide should be a crime because we are not the ones who authored our lives, but God. But now in place of God, we have government to take care of us all.
Committing suicide should be taken as a crime, and those who do that should be given a penalty, because even the Bible itself does not support it.
Those are the views of residents from these areas. We shall sample more of them even as we understand what people know or even understand issues, matters, attempted suicide or even death by suicide. And remember, just saying the words committing suicide actually criminalizes the act in itself. We'll be right back.
It's one platform where everybody has a voice.
If we don't have jobs, if we don't have money, if our business...
Hosted by the King of Wit.
Do you know the Bible to that much detail? Ama hizi ni zile tu zinaendanishana na dhambi zenye unajua.
It's basically everybody's show.
Vitamin C ni cassava, shauri ya nguvu. Vitamin D ni dania. Anachakula, anaimba. I have decided.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. King Ori and the Guesswork CEO, Kenya Jui.
The Kisumu County Assembly specializes in stimulants, to be specific, concentrated coffee.
Where humor meets sense.
Moses Kuria alinitwanga hapa serious.
Soldiers wanakuanga wameka polisi kids. Mbona nyinyi mkimbiangi mkituona?
The Wicked Edition. Every Friday at 7:30 p.m. only on NTV.
I think you know what you have to do.
Oh yeah? What?
You have to hire me.
Now that you're already in, anything strange that you hear or see about Charlie is crucial. Okay?
So, what happened with this woman, Tammy Andrade, right?
I have no idea.
So why did you try to call her so many times last night? What was that about? You never told me about it, Big
Of course I told you, but we won't keep talking about it, okay? If you want to be in this business, you have to be a little less self-conscious.
Well, thank you for your time. How juicy.
Juicy.
Customer preferences are changing daily. You wake up one day, an innovation has come up and the customer wants a service in a way that you've not delivered before. Textbook Center aims to provide service, products and solutions that exceed our customers' expectations. Partnering with Sandy Transport ensures that we are able to deliver on our promise of being more than a bookshop.
I'm growing up, I'm growing into every moment. So if
Nurture the moment. Minute Maid Nutri Defenses, fortified with vitamin E and zinc to help improve your defense system.
Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory, we offer free delivery within the same day? Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory, you can open an account and lipa pole pole at your convenience? Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory, you can get customized sizes according to your roof plan to avoid wastage? Call us now on 0111 050 700. Ruiru Mabati Factory, mali safi kwa bei poa.
Lucozade. Energy to get through it.
Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Today we are focusing on suicide prevention ahead of September 10th, which is the World Suicide Prevention Day. And actually the theme this year is creating hope through action, and in itself speaks a lot about how each and every one of us can actually rally together to ensure that we help prevent suicides in the country and of course beyond. Helping us with this conversation, I am joined by Sheikh Ibrahim Lithome, who is a Muslim scholar at Jamia Mosque and also a lawyer, Chetna Mukesh Desai, Vice Chairperson at the Hindu Council of Kenya, Reverend John Calvin Kamau, who is the Parish Minister at the PCEA Kahawa Sukari, and Hiram Chomba, who is a suicide prevention expert at the Center for Suicide Research and Interventions. And now, Hiram, when we went to break, I mentioned just saying commit suicide in itself actually criminalizes the act. Why is it so important to change the terminology when we are also addressing these matters?
Well, I think the term really comes from that it's committing a that clause in itself means it's commit suicide, which is a crime. I think it is important to actually also change the wordings, increase the sensitivity, because it might be difficult in the general populace because we've already adapted, in our minds that it's commit suicide. However, it is important continually to sensitize that it's not commit suicide, die by suicide, because because when you say commit suicide, you're really entirely sort of quote unquote blaming the person entirely as that they are the ones who entirely caused their death and it's their own fault.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's that's the reason behind the law the law criminalizing suicide. So it is important because even in other countries and even by global standards, recommendation by ISP is that by the 2030 we would have countries globally to have decriminalized suicide, and also it is best practice not to use the words commit suicide according to WHO and International Association for Prevention. So that is what I would say, because if we change stigma, destigmatize this phenomenon, then we have also to include, change of semantics.
Okay.
That is what I would say.
All right. So it is death by suicide or as a result of suicide, something that even the journalists are trying to get used to this terminology. Now, something that has come to the fore, and this has actually been put across by John, who says the religious institutions have really been, have come under heavy criticism for lacking awareness about mental health. Sheikh, when it comes to Islam, is it something that is taught? Is it something that is sensitized? And what is being done to help people along with this?
Yeah, unfortunately, Gladys, and I began by accepting this blame right from the beginning.
Yeah.
When you look at the teachings themselves, they're very clear about dying by suicide. I want to be I'm sensitized now.
Yeah.
It's dying by suicide. The teachings are very clear, but unfortunately, we have not prioritized this in our sermons. Yet, religious leaders have a lot of forums to address the people. Even the underlying root causes, they are clearly addressed in the religion. Even how to help people have hope, very well addressed. Like in Islam, we are told, even when something befalls you, a calamity befalls you, take it positively. Maybe something good is going to come out of that. And when, let's say, you are really struggling to get something and then you don't get it, we're told, accept it as God's will. Maybe it's good. Even death itself, the way we receive bad news of death, because there is nothing that can be as bad as the news of death. We usually say, be patient and accept that we all come from God and back to God we shall go and everybody will die. Mm-hmm. So receive it positively. But how often do we talk about it? I'm trying to remember, I've been at Jamia Mosque from 1993 to date. I'm trying to remember how many sermons have been there I've had addressing this problem. I can tell you none, including myself. I've given sermons there. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important that we sensitize, first of all, the religious leaders that this is an important thing. It's not enough to say the Quran says. What are you saying yourself? Pick out the text and address the situation. So we first of all sensitize the religious leaders, bring them to that level of appreciating that this is a priority area. Even as we are preparing people to go to heaven, this is affecting them and it is stopping them from going to heaven. Gladys, I have to live in this world before going to heaven. So help me live positively in this world. Yeah. So the leaders, when they come to that level, then let them prioritize this. And then for the people who attempt committing suicide, because I can see this is where the discussion is all about. We should look at it as a mental health problem. Because Gladys, we all love living. We love it. It's sweet to live. So this person who decides, I don't want to live, we need to sympathize with this person. Yeah. This is definitely a sick person, and that person needs sympathy, not condemnation. For those who die by suicide, we are not talking about committing, we should not condemn them. We should actually bury them And even pray for them for the mercies of God. Let God deal with them. We should not condemn them. For those who have attempted to die by suicide but have not succeeded, we should look at them sympathetically and help them.
Very well said. Chatner, Sheikh says and actually underscores the fact that mental illness is a huge risk factor that actually contributes to suicide rates. Is this something that you address in the Hindu community, mental illness?
Yes, actually, normally, you know what we do, we always look at the physical problem. Like my head is hurting, I have got this. We go to the doctor and we do the treatment, we take the treatment, we look for the physical health, but we never think about the mental health. And mental health is equally important, but yes, it is always like behind the curtains. It is always not in the forefront. People take it very, very differently when you talk about this person has got a mental problem. In Gujarati word, there's a ganda. It's like a ganda means no one will look at that person with a good intention. Oh, just throw it out, you know. But it is very important that we talk about it, and we try to we try to give them the possibility of the whatever is needed. Like there is so many psychiatrists, so many people around you that can help you to come out of that. That counseling can help you to come out of that mental health, and which is very important. I would also like to take you very back of the history of Hinduism. There was a sati pratha. Sati pratha, sati, S-A-T-I. What was that? If the husband dies, the wife was forced to climb on that fire and die, because if the husband has gone, wife doesn't have any right to leave. That was called a sati pratha. And there was a person, Rajaram Mohan Rai, which was like a person who kills that, who removes that the situation which was there. He fought against it. Now it is a crime to force someone to die after your husband.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is again, it comes in the mental. If that wife was not allowed to die, she will become like a sick mentally, that my husband has gone, then I don't have any right to leave. So because we always take husband as a god, so God has gone, so you have to go. So again, the mental health is linked to so many different areas, and which has to be looked after, definitely.
Very well said. And of Reverend Kamau, is this something that you are addressing in your parish, mental illness?
In my parish, we normally have every Tuesday a virtual engagement, and 80% of these times we use it for the sake of dealing with emotional maturity, emotional challenges that people go through. And we do it virtually so that someone does not have to appear physically, because people may go through challenges. Number two, in the Christian faith again, we have the issue of small Christian groups. In the Catholic Church, evangelicals call it cell groups. In our church, we call it district. It's a way of helping people have small groups that can feel them. Because when someone comes to a church, it is too big for you to be felt. But in the small Christian community, someone is understood and is worked with. And that is what my church is doing.
And Hiram, even as we talk about the impact of mental illness, what can you underscore from your experience that actually leads to suicide?
I would say that first is just to acknowledge what the panelists have mentioned, you know, the real impact of religious systems, because they act as a very strong pillar in the support system, a person going through difficulty. A person interprets event, their life difficulties, or, you know, such like related instances of difficulties through a religious lens. And so I like what Sheikh has said, that even as you go to heaven, you know, how are these people on the ground doing, and what is preventing them from going to heaven? And even what Reverend has mentioned, and the good has mentioned. So I would say that it is happening, and people have a lot of social support right from the religious systems do much better and are able to express themselves much better. Perhaps Reverend will know from his interactions in his church that I think they have done a pretty good job even in burying those who have unfortunately died by suicide, because that is a major milestone. Because previously we saw religious organizations not discriminate families of those people who have died by not to bury them the normal religious way or wearing the church cloak. But over time, because of these conversations that we're having, we have witnessed a lot of support even to the bereaved families of persons who have died by suicide. And so, because from my experience, when a person attempts suicide in a family, the likelihood of someone else in the same family attempting suicide even goes higher, especially among youngest. In my experience, I have witnessed families, who entire, siblings have died by suicide. 3 of them, all of them died by suicide, different times. And so this is a major concern. Something else I noted even recently is the availability of resources that people can reach out to. Where in my country that I come from, Gachanja County, just like many other counties, we still do not have sufficient resources. For instance, in the referral hospital that we have, at the general hospital, we have very few qualified staff who can be able to handle persons who have clinical depression, who are presenting with suicidal symptoms. So, but this is a good direction. And as you build capacity, able to address the challenges, I think it is a good thing that we are not just speaking, but actually, having actionable goals to help people on the ground that work with and interact with every day.
Now, Hiram, earlier on you mentioned that not all persons who have mental illness are necessarily suicidal, and not all suicidal persons have a history of mental illnesses. Explain this.
Yes, we have to look. Suicide is very multifactorial. It is not just as a result of mental illness. Suicide is multifaceted. It's not just from one single source. And suicide is experienced differently across cultures and across locations. So not everyone who has a mental illness will necessarily be suicidal. A lot of people go through mental illnesses and challenges, but they do not necessarily become suicidal, or neither do they make any attempts on their lives. However, and also on the same note, not all persons who have had attempted suicide have a history of suicidal ideation. Sometimes during periods of, for instance, during the COVID times, a person may have experienced a lot of immediate difficulty. For instance, you do not have food to eat, you have your children crying out. You may not necessarily have had a history of mental illness. Secondly, there are many types of suicide. The people sometimes take their lives for political reasons, so we cannot confine the conversation of suicide purely on a mental health framework. We have to put in the scope to include, political suicides and other forms of suicide that we can talk about some other day. So I think this is important to note, so that we do not discriminate those persons who might have, so that we don't say the moment you have attempted suicide, you are quickly to say recommend say therapy. It is important. It's important to understand the context that a suicide happens.
Okay, all right. So at this point, we take more of your feedback, even as we understand if attempt of suicide in this country should be criminalized. Yes, it's part of the law, but should this be the case? Well, we went out to Meru, Isiolo and Bungoma for your feedback.
Mtu akitaka kujiua inapaswa kubaliwa jiue, sababu ameshindwa na hii dunia. Mtu akishindwa na dunia, ukishindwa na chakula unaachana naye. Hata ukishindwa na dunia, wewe upande.
Kwa hivyo sio muhimu mtu kushtakiwa.
Asitakiwa nini na atajiua. Mtu akijiua afikirii kujiua siku moja, anakaa kwa miezi 6 akifikiria vile atajiua.
Ile mtu ambaye kwamba anataka kujiua, ikiwa atapatikana kabla hajajiua, serikali naona imchukulie hatua za kisheria. Kwanza itazame kwanza kama huyo mtu ni kitu gani ambacho kwamba imefanya atake kujiua, kwa sababu kunawezekana kuna matatizo mengi ambayo kwamba yanaweza sababisha mtu kufanya mambo kama hiyo. Kama kuna suluhisho serikali inaweza pata kutokana na yale matatizo ambayo kwamba yanafanya ule mtu ajiue, basi kama serikali kama imepata kweli kuna matatizo inaweza kusuluhisha. Je, kama ni fedha hana, serikali inaweza mpa ili awate hiyo matatizo.
Si vizuri mtu kujiondoa kwa sababu yeye hakujilete. Mungu alimuleta na hawezi kujiondoa. Akijiondoa ana hatia. Na ndio serikali inaweka sheria hata wewe usiondoe mwingine wala kujiondoa, kwa sababu hii maneno ni ambavu uwezo yako.
Jambo la kujitoa uhai, hiyo ni hatia na ni haramu mbele ya watu na mbele ya Mwenyezi Mungu na pia sheria. Kwa hivyo twasema ya kwamba iwapo umepata jambo ambalo lingekufanya wewe ujitoe uhai, inafaa ya kwamba unaweza kushare na watu wale wengine. Inafaa uangalie wale ambao pia ni counselors, waketi na wewe uangalie mambo hayo, kwa sababu the more you share jambo ambalo umeweza kugawa na wale wengine, ili ni jambo ambalo linaweza tatuliwa.
Haistahili mtu kujitoa uhai, na kujitoa uhai ni makosa kama wizi, kama robbery, kama kuua. Kujitoa uhai ni hatia.
Wasi kulingana na swala ambalo kulingana na mjadala leo kwamba kujitoa uhai ni hatia ama si hatia. Kwangu nasema kwamba ni hatia kujitoa uhai. Cha kwanza sisi watu tuko chini ya sheria ambayo inatulinda katika kama nchi ya Kenya. Inasema kwamba kujitoa uhai haipaswi na ni hatia. Ndiposa unapokamatwa unapojaribu kujitoa uhai unafungulia mashtaka na hatimaye kuhukumiwa.
Naonelea kujiua ni makosa ama kujinyonga ni makosa, na unafaa uadhibiwe. Ukiwa hautakuwa umefariki, unafaa uchukuliwe hatua uadhibiwe, kwa sababu maisha ya binadamu ni ya Mwenyezi Mungu na Mungu ndiye alikuumba, na unafaa uhifadhi yao maisha mpaka wakati wako Mungu ambao atakaukubali. Hata kwa kitabu cha Biblia ama Korani hakuna mahali imekubalika wewe kujiua.
Si vyema mtu mwenye amepatikana akitaka kujitia kitanzi kufunguliwa mashtaka ama kuchukuliwa kama mwenye makosa, kwa sababu yafaa serikali ikiwa mzuri, yafaa ya kwanza mchunguze ni sababu gani mtu amejaribu kujitia kitanzi. Then kwa kufanya hivyo maybe mnaweza saidia huyo mtu kwa njia moja ama nyingine, sababu siku hizi visa kama hivi vimekuwa vingi.
Tendo la kujitia kitanzi sio bora, na unajua ya kuwa ukishapatikana serikali inachukua mkondo wake kufanya namna gani kushtaki huyu mtu. Kwa jamii sio vema, kwa sababu kama sisi wanaume unapata ya kuwa most of the time sisi tunaumia ndani sana, na sio rahisi sisi kama wanaume tuongee, tunakuanga na roho ngumu. So kwa hivyo unapata ya kuwa tunafinyika na mambo mengi sana, uchumi na mambo mengine.
Very candid feedback there from residents of this regions, and definitely we are still going to be sharing more that we came across even as we understood from you, if you think that suicide attempts should be criminalized in this country. Now, Sheikh, even as we push for prevention and of course the support system around those who attempt or have to live with the fact that a loved one actually died by suicide, how do you see this coming together, especially in the mosques, in the Islam communities, with other facets of, support in life? How can that now trickle down to ensure that this is also inculcated?
I think one thing that we have to accept is that each one of us in society has a responsibility towards this problem. It's not a problem that should only be seen as a problem of those who have been directly affected. It's a problem that is affecting society in its entirety. And each one of us has a role to play. Let me begin from where I sit as a religious leader. I think as religious leaders, we need to talk more about it, bring out the teachings that reprimand, first of all, the action, and also that talk about what prevents them or the issues that address the underlying root causes. For example, in Islam, the issue of supporting one another is taken very highly in Islam. Like, you're not a true believer until you love for the others what you love for yourself. Meaning, Gladys, your problems should be my problems. I should not be oblivious of what is happening to my brother, my sister, my neighbor. Whether it's a Muslim or not a Muslim, this is encouraged. The teachings of sharing with one another, those are the kind of teachings that we should encourage. We should also encourage about giving hope to one another instead of condemning. And unfortunately, many religious leaders are very fast in condemning people to hell even before they go, instead of giving them hope. So that is the role of religious leaders. Then family, Gladys. I think family plays a very important role here. Take the example of that girl who committed suicide. Maybe because she fell out with her family, she had a problem within the family. If the problem could have been addressed within the family, then this could have been avoided. So parents, parenting also, as you bring out your children, can we try to be keen, and maybe we'll be able to notice the early warning signs, because it doesn't just happen suddenly. There are those early warning signs, the telltale signs. We should be able to observe that. So the family should play its role. And media also has an important role, like you're playing now, of sensitizing the community more. Sio siasa tu saa zote, reporting on politics, all these things. We should also give a chance to this. You can imagine with the people dying of suicide, then the politicians will not even get the votes they want. What I mean is that each member of the society should be reminded of the role they need to play, and we keep on talking about it. Let the debate continue about this issue. We should not shy away from talking about it. Yeah.
Okay, and we have more feedback even as we understand what you think about if suicide should be criminalized in this country. And we have some of that coming through on that hashtag new normal. If you can have that on screen. Babu Sylvester, who says, no, not a crime. Depression is a killer disease. Thank you, Babu. Another here from Gishuhi Mbogo, who says, no, they need help, not judgment. Asante. Another from Vicky, who says, no, not at all. Asante, Vicky. We have Manu, who says, it's a disease and needs treatment, not judgment. Very well said, Manu. Naomi Babi says, no, those people need help, not prison. Thank you. Boro says mental illness isn't a crime and shouldn't be considered as such. The person attempting suicide is sick or depressed, and that's what their mind sees as a solution. Well said, Mburu. Another from Ruth Waweru, who says, of course not. It's a mental health illness. Yes, it is, Ruth. Wangari says, of course, no, people need help. Then we criminalize them. How will jail help them? Thank you, Wangari. Another from Jenny Rungo, who says it's a mental health issue, not a crime. Attempting suicide signals the need for mental health care, but prosecutors often highly scrutinize people for it, hindering their access to help. That's my take. Thank you, Jane. Another here from Oino Kevin, who says, surely not at all. A situation that pushes someone to end their own life should be properly addressed. They need guiding and counseling, not suffering behind bars. Now, before we take a quick break here, Chetna, I'd like to understand, and especially in the face of the pandemic, a lot of job losses, a lot of marriages breaking, a lot of strained relationships. How are you meeting these needs directly?
One thing is there, any situation has a solution, good or bad, but it has a solution. Every phase of age, every age has got a different problems, not only children, not only adults, not only seniors. Everyone has a different problems at the different age or different situations. Now, looking at the pandemic, yes, since last almost more than 1.5 years, people have really suffered badly. So many marriages been broken. So many people have suffered with mental, physical, financial crisis. So the communities and the temples and the religious leaders have really come out. The communities have really come out with the support system. We have like a pyramid. There's a big person that, then there's a branches going on. One person will following, okay, this person has this community has this, and they all will come together with the solution, with the financial support, with the mental support, and that has really helped. Another thing is like festivals, celebrations, or events, or weddings. They also helps to come out of this sourness or this bitterness or this sorrowness. So all this also helps. So I'm sure you must have seen Diwali or a Navratri, which are the Hindu festival, which are like colorful with the bright everything. Unfortunately, we could not meet in person, but by using the technology, we have really supported each and every person, whoever come out, whoever is needed help, and as a community, we have always tried our best to support them, to help them.
And speaking of coming out to ask for help, do you find people who easily come to you for help, or you have to look out for them?
Definitely not. People will not come out very easily. Very easily they will not come out. But yes, there are people who are believing in the society, who believe in the communities that yes, instead of fighting here, instead of suffering here, let's go out, let's meet the people, let's talk to the people, let's try to get the solution. And there are people who will not come out on their own. But yes, as a community leaders, it's our responsibility that yes, try to look around. And the another good example I like to share here is a neighborhood. Neighborhood is a very important factor. If something happening next door, the neighbors should be very much aware about it. Yes, there is something going on wrong. If that community or that family is not coming out, let's talk to the other people who can come and support them, who can come and help them. So as a neighborhood, we should be always alert. We should be always ready to help the people. Whoever is your neighbor, it's not necessarily Hindu, not necessarily Muslim, not necessarily Christian. It's just a normal human being. Even if you are walking on the street, even if you are sitting in the matatu, even if you are sitting in the train or bus, if you see the person is not in the right mood or right way of behavior, you should always be alert. Try to help them. Try to talk to them. How can we help you?
We all can do something to support each other and also prevent suicide in this country. Well, we take another quick break right here on Your World. We'll be right back.
Enjoy the best family entertainment on StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet.
Oh, yes.
Subscribe to Classic Bouquet for only $899 for 30 days or Smart Bouquet for only $999 for 30 days. Come on eBay. Ni StarTimes.
Your baby's quite active.
After I discovered Molfix, I rediscovered my baby. She's jumping and running around.
Well, we call that the Molfix Comfort. Thanks to its elastic side bands, Molfix provides freedom of movement for your baby. All babies deserve a high-quality diaper. You should also try Molfix.
Fresh fried ginger has ginger oil, which is good for a healthy living lifestyle. It combines wonderfully on salads, stir fries, when basted on roasted meat, or simply sprinkled on your favorite dish. Now available in 250 ml, 500 ml, and 1 liter.
Lucozade. Energy to get through it.
Where were we?
I think there is another woman.
Hamjui Santos, ndio.
It's impossible. He's just making assumptions.
Why not just date both of them? It's pretty normal these days. And if you play your cards right, I can be number 3.
There's another problem.
When are you ever gonna stop toying with my feelings?
I thought you left.
No, I went to the bathroom, but then I heard a woman's voice, so I stayed.
I can explain.
You can't decouple banking from economic cycles, and you can't have strong economies and weak banks or the other way around. Retail banks always outperform when there's an up cycle. Wholesale banks always outperform when there's a down cycle. Net 50-50 gives you a more predictable financial profile. We're very comfortable with the runway we have to grow our business organically within the Kenyan market. And I think regionally with our group, we have significant presence.
I'm really intrigued by your asset quality. Your NPL ratio is in the single digits. You're clearly placing a very tight lead on the bad debt. It almost looks to me like you're in a very different market from other players.
Lucozade. Energy to get through it.
Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. I'm still joined by Sheikh Ibrahim Lithome, Muslim scholar Jamil Musk, and also a lawyer by profession, Chetna Mukesh Desai, Vice Chairperson at the Hindu Council of Kenya, Reverend John Calvin Kamau, Parish Minister at the PCA, Kahawa Sukari, and Hiram Chomba, who is a suicide prevention expert, Center for Suicide Research and Interventions. Thank you all for being part of this conversation. Now, Reverend Kamau, just going into break and talking with Sheikh and, of course, Chetna was saying, and we heard from some of the feedback, people saying it's difficult coming out to seek help. And therein you will find a lot of loopholes as to why people actually attempt suicide. How do you encourage your congregation to reach out?
All right. I think one of the best things I would want to mention is right from the Word of God, and allow me to read the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 9 and verses 4, that says, anyone who is among the living has hope. Even a live dog is better than a lion, which is dead. The idea of hope is everything. And I think what we encourage our people is to give hope to others who are going through challenges and be able to give them a shoulder to lean on. The research says that more men die by suicide because men are prone not to speak out. So opportunities that are created for men to meet together, discuss matters, not necessarily personal but opens an opportunity for them to share their lives without necessarily becoming so personal. And that way, healing happens in the community. So one of the things we do is to organize people in small groups, women together, men together, the young people, so that they are able to become a support system for each other. So that even this Bible study, it is done together, and that way they grow. Lastly is the issue of Christian maturity. Because for you to trust God to be able to live requires a maturity. So therefore, there has to be Christian growth. Thank you, Gladys.
All right, there are those who criticize the religious leaders and say they just don't get it. I come with an issue, I'm told that perhaps I'm demon possessed or whatever else that they think I'm dealing with. How are we as leaders, especially in your domain, ensuring that you become more sensitized to their needs?
Well, I know Christianity and Christian leaders have been accused of spiritualizing all matters and see demons in them. I know the Bible talks about people who are demon possessed. But as Hiram said, it is not all people who die by suicide have mental illness, and it's also not all mental illness that goes into suicide. So the idea is to deal with a matter as it is. Look at the root cause rather than looking at the mysterious cause. Are there things that can be dealt with? Is there a struggle in the family? Are you having challenges relating with others? If that is dealt with, you don't spiritualize and see demons, because at the end of the day, demons are mystical. Yeah.
Okay. Now, here, Sarah here says, please help us understand how we can recognize or, tell warning signs in somebody who is perhaps trying or thinking of suicide. Perhaps you can walk us through this so that if I can help somebody, I need to also be aware of what to look out for. Hiram?
Yes, thank you, Gladys. There are specific warning signs that a person can look out for. And one of the obvious warning signs, let me just speak, that demarcation, there are warning signs and there are risk factors. Risk factors are those factors that predispose a person to suicide. Warning signs are, those things that tell you that this person actually already has a. And one of the clear early warning signs is verbalizing the intent. If a person has said, I want to die, or I wish I was dead, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about dying, when they start verbalizing some of these things, then you need to take caution, because a lot of the times, just like the lady in the earlier news, that he thought it was a joke, but in actual sense, it wasn't actually a joke. So verbalizing or writing things down, or writing even a will, or how, detailing how they want to be buried, or some of such like things. Also, crying intently, having a face of serious emotion and social isolation. When a person slowly isolates themselves, and is in a period of crying, it also, with other factors, you can't really point at just one warning sign. You have to also putting all of them together. So, isolation. Something else that is important to note: if a person goes from they have been in isolation, then suddenly they are out there, they are all jovial. They could also be saying goodbyes for the last time. Sort of, they've already established that they want to die, and they're coming out and just sort of saying goodbye. So, and I talked about verbalizing, posting on Facebook, posting on social media about the intent to die. Also, the obsession with someone else who died by suicide. They say so and so also died by suicide. So if I find a teenager obsessing with someone else died by suicide, then it is cause for alarm. Also, procuring means, which means a person has already procured some means of ending their lives. I don't want to mention which means, but it could be something that it could potentially be fatally harmful to their health. So there is that, and also just generally also sort of getting the house in order. If it's a father calling kids, and there is not really established reason that they would do that. So if you look at all these warning signs together, then as they tick closely, then you're looking at someone who's very likely of ending their lives.
Okay, so
those are some of the warnings.
So when you see these warnings, as the support system, what should you do?
So the first thing is to engage the person, right? It's okay to let the person, have a few open-ended questions that you ask. What makes you think about taking your life? Let them express themselves. Let them talk about what they are, what is, making them suicidal. Take away any means that, the means of suicide that, they could potentially use away from them, anything that could be harmful to them. It's very important to do that. Also, do not leave the person alone. Finally, get in touch with someone who can be of assistance, a professional, a counselor, a religious leader, at least to get that initial help, and professional, because you say suicide is a medical emergency. So when a person already is in that state that they have actually planned and wants to execute whatever they want to do, then it's an emergency. So not leave the person alone, get in touch with available help as fast as possible. Also find people in their circles that they trust. Find out from them. You can ask them, is there a person within your circles that you trust, that you can talk or that you can engage or you can talk to?
Yes.
And then, of course, link them up together with the person hospital. Yes.
Now, you're saying it's a medical emergency. So is there a helpline perhaps you can point us to that somebody can call, whether they feel suicidal or are dealing with somebody who is suicidal?
I know, I may not know offered help, but I know a couple of organizations that do offer support for such people who are struggling with suicidal thoughts. There is a Red Cross, helpline. It's actually a hotline. Red Cross offers emergency counseling services. There is Befriend Us Kenya. They offer emergency services for suicide. There is CSSRI. Center for Suicide Research and Intervention. You can go to their social media websites or Google them up. They will definitely come up, and anytime you can always reach them.
Okay, thank you for that. And Sheikh, even as we bring this conversation to a close, I think a lot has also been learned, and we've been able to appraise where we are at in as far as how the religious institutions can help the population in preventing suicide. So with this information, where do you see communities going with the help and the leadership of religious institutions?
I think we need to be more practical, take the religious teachings on this issue and apply them practically. Apply religious teachings to address real issues affecting society. For example, many people go to religious leaders to tell them their problems. Of course, very few, if any, would go and say, I feel like I want to die. But when a person comes and tells you, I am tired of my marriage is not working, my job is not working, my business is down, that's a pointer that this person is frustrated in life and they need to be helped. So we should always give primacy or importance to anything somebody tells us about. And I would like here to quote a teaching, a very important teaching in Islam that says, Man kana fi hajati akhihi kana Allahu fi hajatihi. Whoever considers the problems of another person as his own problems, then God will help you solve your problems and also the problems of the other person. Rescue your brother, whether he is the oppressor or the oppressed. Again, that can help. So in short, Gladys, what I'm saying, religion should not just be theory. Religion should be practical. Use the religious teachings to address real issues affecting the community. So for me, that's what I see the direction to be. And the conversation, we should not sweep it under the carpet. This is a conversation that should be given priority. It should be in the center stage because we are losing lives. And religion is about saving lives.
Chetna, where you see it, how can you help your congregation? And it's impressive that in your community you have very few cases.
I think communication gap has to be minimized. If there is enough communication amongst the family, the friends, the community leaders, the religious leaders, less chances of people going to frustration or thinking about or attempting suicide. Because they get that assurance that, yes, if I have this problem, it will be sorted out with this. So they will think in that way. And I also think about the action plan. As the other person has, Hurem has said, even Mr. Sheikh has said, that if you come to know about particular incident, particular warning signs, try to take the actions. Don't wait until it happens. The precaution always, if you think that, yes, this person is in problem, try to give the priorities. Try to help him or her as early as possible, any XYZ actions. And another thing, we call it like a meditation, yoga. Try to divert them on that particular thing, because one more thing, every moment will go. If that particular moment of that person thinking about attempting suicide, if it has gone, then it doesn't mean that he or she is not going to attempt it again, but that particular moment is gone. So you buy a time. You got few hours, few minutes, few days. So spend with that person, try to change their perception, try to help them out, and that will definitely help them.
Okay. At this point, before I hear from Reverend Kamau and of course Hiram with their closing remarks, I'd like to take one more batch of feedback from you, especially from Trans Nzoia and Machakos, even as they let us know what they think about this question. Should attempted suicide be criminalized?
Hakuna haja ya kupelekwa kwa koti ama astakiwe, sababu huyo mtu anaweza kuwa na mashida, anakosa mtu wa kumfanya counseling, akipata mtu wa kumsaidia, sababu he or she, we need him or her.
Sangine si kupenda kwake. Maybe that person is under influence of other things like drugs or mental problem, domestic and such kind of things. So if such a person, if the law determines after he or she is rescued from the act, he qualifies to face the law, I think such a person should face the law. But if he or she doesn't, I think then such a person should undergo a process of counseling, and maybe that is another way of rescuing such a person.
Attempting suicide should not be criminalized at all, because as you know, there are challenges of life in the current generation. Instead of criminalizing, the government should come up with a clear way of solving issues in the community, because parents and children at large have got different problems. So the government should actually allocate some funds to counsel the community.
Mtu anapojaribu kujiua, jambo la kwanza tunasema ya kwamba maisha sasa imekuwa ni ngumu, na mtu anafika mahali unaona ya kwamba labda anajaribu kujikimu kimaisha inakuwa ni ngumu, na ndiposa anafikia kiwango cha kuamulia kujitoa uhai. Kuchukuliwa hatua na serikali ya kumshtaki hawasaidii mahali pale, bali inatakana waangalie jinsi ya kuweza kufanya namna gani kuelekeza huyu mtu na kumuuliza ni sababu gani imefanya mpaka anaamulia kuchukua hatua ya aina hiyo.
The people who have attempted suicide, they should not be prosecuted. One, the present life or the present generation, we have, as parents and the government, we have put them into trial by denying them their rights. We have educated them, and yet we have not given them resources. We have not employed them. And you know very well, someone who's educated and is knowledgeable, this person needs to be occupied in mind. So when you deny that person the employment, the resources, what do you expect him to do, or her? They should not be prosecuted. They should be helped.
Those are your thoughts, even as we are asked to, should suicide really be criminalized in this country? Yes, by law it is a crime, but should that be the case, considering what we have learned about suicide here today and has always been documented? Well, that is what we are actually pursuing, but also understanding how you and I can be part of preventing suicide in this country. Now, as I mentioned, the Suicide Prevention Day, Awareness Day, is on September 10th, and the theme this year is creating hope through action. Reverend Kamau, what are you being intentional about in your parish?
Thank you very much. The idea is to have a helpline where someone can be able to call. We already have a number of counselors that are available, so that, because as a minister I may not necessarily be trained in deep counseling, but there are others. Number two is prayer life, which is a key thing where people are able to connect with God, and also to make the church or an institution, whether mosque or in the Hindu temple, a place of rest. You know, when the Bible says, "Come to me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, I'll give you rest." A church should be a place where people can find rest, can be a place of refuge. That when I come to church, I can get counsel, I can have my burdens lifted. And that's what the church should be, and what we are doing as a church.
Okay.
On Sunday, we worked on a business expo to check what people are doing in businesses, so that we help them also overcome challenges that they are going through.
All right. Thank you, Reverend Kamau. And before we hear from Hiram, some more of your feedback on that hashtag new normal. And if we can have that, attempted suicide is a crime, according to Daniel, because it is a sin and disrespect to the human life. That's a serious contempt to the Creator. Another from Lucy or Lucky Griffin, who says, no, it should be considered a medical or mental issue and given the necessary medical attention, access to therapy. Another from Sami Kibiwat, who says mental health issue is not a crime but a big societal threat that we are all ignoring. Suicide is the last symptom of mental health issues. Savio says mostly mental health determined or related but still a crime, but like we consider those under substance doing petty stuff crimes, so should suicide. We should seek help when overwhelmed. If we can't allow mercy killing of terminal ill patients, suicide is a no too. Another here from Anthony, who says attempted suicide should be grouped as a mental crisis, not a crime. I don't think anyone in his or her right mind would want to die, though there should be some ground rules to curb suicidal tendencies. Eugene Moneki, suicide attempts should be criminalized. Instead, we can have measures to ensure victims are assisted. Should not be criminalized. Do we have another? Okay, Kabaki Kere says do that and we will have very high rates of success in suicides and not attempts. Attempted suicide is a mental health issue. They should get help, not be subjects of criminal justice system. Thank you, Kabaki. And a last one here from Eugene Okiri, who says they should focus on getting help for the person. Jailing only worsens the situation. Problem will be solved. Well, thank you for engaging with us even as we try to understand about matters suicide. And remember, this is criminalized in this country, but there is actually a case in court to challenge the abolishment of that penal code. And I'm sure Hiram can speak more about it, even as he is part of the stakeholders that are pushing for the same. But even Hiram, as we bring this to a close, there seems to be a very thin line between supporting those who attempt or are living, after with the fact that their loved ones actually died by suicide, and also ensuring that people do not always think of it as a way out in life, hence the criminalizing of the same. How do we toe this line?
Well, I would say first question would be, how is it working? How has it been working? And how are we doing that front? Clearly, we're not doing well. Currently, we have a crisis, the COVID crisis with, job losses and social isolation, and, the statistics are bound to go up higher. So I would say, indeed, we are pushing for the criminalization of suicide. Because personally, I have witnessed people who incarcerated, not one, not two, and not suddenly three. Numerous people incarcerated in this country because they have attempted suicide. And some of them even go ahead, even within prison systems, take their lives. So clearly it is not working. It is not helping to curb. So there are better ways to curb suicide that are not necessarily criminal. The law can come in and help in other ways, but not incarcerating or victimizing these people. What I would say is that when a suicide happens, you're all affected, whether you are in it or not. If you're hearing a neighbor who took their lives or someone who knows someone else who took their life, you're all affected because you wonder what would have happened to this person, could this life have been saved. So I would say that, it is a concerning issue, and death by suicide is not normal death. it is a death of crisis, and causes confusion, causes existential questions to arise, and depression to ensue among the people affected around the person. So I would say, in line with this year's theme is creating hope through action, is that I would challenge all of us to go out there. You know, a sister person may not necessarily come to you and tell you that they are struggling. You as a person can actually go to them if you notice some telltale signs that they could be at risk of taking their lives. But always ask direct questions. Ask a direct question to get the answers. Have you thought about taking your life if you're actually concerned? So I would say, even to religious leaders, beyond creating an environment where people come to you, this year's theme states that we should create hope through action. Going out there, a task-shifting approach. We are just, seated in the office waiting for people to come to us, but we are going out where that is happening in the communities, providing support to persons who have been affected by suicide, and offering necessary support to them. So that is the only way we can actually create hope through actionable goals, by going out to people and helping them. So yes, that is what I would say. Thank you.
Hiram Chomba, suicide prevention expert at the Center for Suicide Research and Interventions. Reverend John Calvin Kamau, Parish Minister at the PCA Kahawa Sukari. Chetna Mukesh Desai, Vice Chairperson, Hindu Council of Kenya. Excuse me. And Sheikh Ibrahim Lithome, who is a Muslim scholar at the Jamia Mosque and a lawyer by profession. Thank you all for being part of this very vital conversation. And we hope that this conversation in itself strikes a chord with you, and the same will be done in your small spaces, so that we can collectively play a role in preventing suicide in our communities. Now, tomorrow, with businesses owners decrying the high cost of doing businesses in Kenya, what more can be done to entice more people to build their own startups in this country? My colleague Victor Kiprop will be taking you through that conversation tomorrow from 7 a.m. See you then.